Hello and welcome to pmclounge.com. In this video, we are going over some more practice questions for Agile. So these questions are going to help you out if you're preparing for your PMP exam, PMI-ACP, CSM, or any other Agile related certifications as well. We have done several other videos on practice questions. So check out the first link in the description. That is a playlist of all the practice questions, the videos related to practice questions that we have done. They are going to cover everything that you need to know that you can practice basically for your PMP exam. Now we have done several videos on Agile as well, and I'll add a couple of playlists in the description about the concept videos and your FAQs that we have answered around Agile. Because if you are preparing for your ACP, even the agile part of your PMP, those videos are going to help you a lot. Those are all concept videos, and some of the comments that we received was, concept and all is fine, but can we get some practice questions as well? And that is why we've done a part one of this agile video as well, agile practice questions. This is the part two. If you check the first link in the description out, that is the playlist of all the practice questions we've done, you'll find the part one there as well. All right, enough said. Let's start off and solve some agile questions. Okay, question one. Which of the following activity isn't a part of the sprint review? Now, remember, it says is not a part of the sprint review. That means you need to select an option which is not a part of sprint review. Team creates an improvement plan based on how the sprint went. Okay. Product backlog is updated to reflect the probable scope for the next sprint. All right. The Scrum team collaborates with the business users to plan upcoming work. The deliverable or the working software is demoed or demonstrated. So, what do you think? Which of these four is not a part of the sprint review? Remember, we are talking about sprint review. And the correct answer here is something which is part of the sprint retrospective and not sprint review. So when the team wants to create an improvement plan based on how the sprint went, that is something that they do in the sprint retrospective and not in sprint review. During the sprint review, what the team does is they meet with the business users and customers and they review what they have done. Basically, the last thing that we talked about, right? And they also give a demo of the working software, right? And they also collaborate on what can be the probable scope of the next sprint, right? And what should be their upcoming work. These two options are actually pretty much related, and I would say there's a lot of similarities between two, right? So they also do a review of the increment, that basically involves your demo, the demonstration of the working software. They'll also discuss the backlog, right? That is also something which is discussed and which is mentioned here, the product backlog. This is also something which is discussed in the sprint review meeting itself. So they can take a look at what is the probable work that looks like in the next sprint. But like I said, option A, this is not something which is part of the sprint review. Sprint review is not for looking back at what happened and what could have gone right and what went wrong and all that, right? That is what sprint retrospective is for. So correct option A. All right, question number two. You are a product owner and recently got off a call with a business user who shared a new requirement. What should you do next? Remember, you are a product owner. The question wants you to wear the hat of a product owner and not that of a scrum master or an agile project manager. All right. So you now have a new requirement that is shared by a business user. What are you going to do next? You're going to talk about the new requirement in the daily scrum. So whenever the next daily scrum takes place, you're going to talk about that requirement. You're going to schedule a sprint planning session. So you have a new requirement. You might want to plan that in a sprint planning session, right? How you are going to deliver it. Add the requirement in the product backlog. All right, that is one thing that you can do with the requirement. Add the requirement in the sprint backlog. So there is a sprint backlog as well. And remember, you are the product owner here. So what should you do now that you have a new requirement? See, the correct answer to this is actually C. You add the requirement in the product backlog. Product backlog is the single source of truth when it comes to all the requirements pertaining to the product. A product owner is someone who basically owns the product backlog. Obviously, a Scrum Master can help you provide guidance in terms of what Scrum and Agile talk about the product backlog, but end of the day, the ownership of the product backlog is mostly with the product owner. And as and when a requirement is discovered or a requirement is communicated by someone that the product owner feels should be part of the product backlog, he or she is going to do just that, add the requirement in the product backlog. Quick reminder about our PMC Lounge community. A lot of people share their experiences, testimonials. We have Facebook and LinkedIn group. Everything is free. Check out the link pmclounge.com/community. Okay, question number 3. All the questions below are part of the daily Scrum except. So you're going to see questions as options for this question, right? So all of them are basically part of the daily Scrum except. So you need to find out which of the questions that you're going to see now, which of them is not a part, which one of them is not a part of the daily Scrum. What have I done since the last Scrum? Is this a question that you can expect an answer to in the daily Scrum meeting? What planned work did I fail to complete? What are the roadblocks I am facing? What will I do till the next daily scrum to meet the sprint goal? Now, do you remember the 3 questions that everyone in the daily scrum is supposed to answer? Those 3 questions, you can see them here. But there is one option which is not a part of those 3 questions, and that is option B. What planned work did I fail to complete? You see, whatever that you fail to complete is not something that you want to discuss in the daily scrum. Remember, it is a stand up meeting that should last for 15 minutes and it should focus on what has been done. If there are any issues that anyone is facing from the team, and what is the planned work. That's all. Whatever that you fail to complete is something that you can take separately and not in the daily scrum. Now, there's another reason why we do not want to talk about failures as such in the daily scrum, because you see, if you talk about failures and if you start discussing failures in the daily scrum, it can also create a negative and even possibly embarrassing environment as well for the person who's sharing, right, his or her failures. So you do not want to distract the entire team from the environment of openness. You want to maintain that environment of openness, and you do not really want people to talk about their failures in the daily scrum in a public environment. They can talk about it with a smaller audience or with just the scrum master or with just the engineering team, and try to figure out how they can turn things around. But that is definitely not something we want every single person in the daily scrum meeting to give an answer to, right? So let's move on to question number 4. All right, when does the sprint get over? When the team finishes the work. So whenever the work is done, you can say that the sprint is over, or when the sprint retrospective is completed, or when the sprint review is completed, or option D, when the time box expires. So you already know we've talked about retrospective and a review in one of our previous questions. So you know that retrospective is something which happens after the review. So is it okay to say that whenever you're done with the retrospective, you're done with the sprint? Or is it okay to say that when the team finishes the work or when the time box expires? So the right answer to this is when the time box expires. In fact, there are other events in Scrum which also have a certain time box. Let me know in the comments, do you know of other events that have a certain time box? And those events, they also get over when their time box expires. We've talked about those events in our agile concept related videos, so you can check that out if you still don't know, if you cannot recall, right? So all those events, everything gets over when the time box expires. It doesn't matter whether you were able to finish the work or not. It doesn't matter whether you were able to do a retrospective or not. In fact, this is a good opportunity for you as a scrum master or an agile project manager to think through, if you are regularly not able to complete some of your work, or if you're regularly not able to complete your retrospective meetings, then it is likely that the time box that you have, be it 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever time box that you have, is perhaps not enough, or perhaps you're taking in too much work, which is something that you can speak to your team about. So that is a takeaway from this question. When the time box expires, the sprint gets over. Now, there is another situation where a sprint may get over, which is not in the option here. We've talked about it in one of our previous videos. I'll share a link to that video as well in the description. And that is when a sprint gets cancelled. So that is a very, very rare event, and it basically downgrades the morale of the entire team. So that is why it is rare and it is definitely not recommended. But it is something which may call an end to the sprint if it is cancelled. So even if you have some time in your time box, but the sprint is cancelled, then the sprint gets over there itself. So who can cancel a sprint? Why does a sprint gets cancelled? If you need answers to those questions, then check out the video in the description below where we talked about canceling a sprint. Okay, you are the Scrum Master and are responsible for everything except, so you need to select an option where you are not responsible for something. Helping the team understand the customer requirements, helping the team understand the agenda of the daily Scrum, guiding the product owner on how to effectively manage the product backlog, guiding the entire organization on the understanding of Scrum. So, as a Scrum Master, what are you not supposed to do out of this four? Okay, when it comes to guiding the product owner on how to effectively manage the product backlog, of course, this is something that you as a Scrum Master can do, because you know Scrum in and out. You know the Scrum process in and out. And if there's any best practices that you can share with the product owner about how he or she can effectively manage the product backlog, you are going to do it. So this is definitely something that you as a Scrum Master do. So what is it that you don't do? Well, the correct answer is helping the team understand the customer requirements, because this is something that a product owner is supposed to do. It is the product owner's job to help the team understand what the customer requirements are, and it is not a job of the Scrum Master. Now, other three answers, these are actually good example. Other three options that we have, these are good example of the Scrum Master's servant leadership role, right? Because you are helping and you're guiding and you're stepping in whenever needed, making use of your Scrum knowledge. But customer requirements, that is not something CSM certification or a PMP or ACP certification can help you achieve, because that is something a product owner who will have more clarity, who would have spoken to the customer a lot of times, and who would know what the requirements are. So a product owner is supposed to do that. So that's all that we had in this video. I hope you got value out of it. Like, share, subscribe if you like our content. Consider contributing at pnclounge.com/contribute, Or you can also make use of the thanks button on YouTube. Don't forget to check out our website, pmclounge.com, your number one free PMP and project management resource. Thank you and have a nice day.